I think as I was going through this exercise, I actually thought it was kind of tough because I've read some like deep targets from around the industry, and I feel like our deep targets are much deeper than those deep targets. And so
We get a little deeper for sure.
these might be like 9 inches as opposed to
Yeah.
3.9. So
Yeah.
you're getting your fill.
She was like, wait, it goes that deep? You're like,
I've been missing
most
out.
don't, sweetheart. This is this one podcast. I mean, most of them don't go this deep.
Sights and sounds and edges found, you will now get down with the Underground, the show that goes to the depths of the Dynasty landscape. Dynasty Underground back in your life. Of course, I am Trav, hosting, West Coastin'. We are posted up on the Undroppables YouTube channel, of course. Find us on all your favorite audio platforms and at the Undroppables on social media. With me tonight, as always, getting fired up for the draft. Of course, spreading the wise words of Dynasty game theory. The UN Miyagi, Mr. Jax Falcone. How are you after a nice long weekend in Vegas, brother?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Went and saw Dead and Company with the family. Good stuff. Hey, really excited about the sort of listenership and the sort of community forming around this this crazy pod we're doing, man. Just so you know, we're noticing it's a lot of fun, and so for all of those who are climbing aboard this crazy train, thank you and have fun.
Amen. Amen to that. It has been a good ride and it is just the start. So stick around with us. Of course, pinkies up, ladies and gentlemen. The aristocrat is on screen with us, Mr. Joe Quavius Kuvatakis. How are you, my man? You had a little manual labor action over the Easter weekend, and I must say you did a bang up job, sir.
I was gonna say, I don't know if you can like call me the aristocrat anymore. I was doing some blue collar work this weekend. Jax is sending us photos and videos from Vegas, having a great time. I was trenching 20 feet through concrete to replace a water line by myself.
Wow.
By myself.
Lord knows
So
I couldn't do
pinkies,
that. So
pinkies down.
yeah.
Pinky is down, in fact. Well,
My
yeah,
hands are
nicely done.
sore, my back is sore, my hamstrings are sore. Just it all hurts, but son of a bitch, I got the job done.
Mad respect.
Absolutely.
Mad
And
respect.
you are here and you are ready to talk some NFL draft. Because, boys, it is draft week. We are recording this as of Tuesday night. And I can say for the listeners, speaking for all three of us, we are all at least at 60% chub about it. And we are so close to these picks that we've been talking about for months being made. So, this episode should come out like right around morning of, or maybe even the night before the draft. So, hope you enjoy. We're going to talk about some draft storylines, guys. We got a bunch of little things on the docket, just some little things that are nagging at us a little bit, some fun things that have kind of popped up as of late. And I want to talk just to kind of start overall, because as I was looking through the notes and as we've been doing our rankings and things and looking at who's going to get drafted where, we also have a startup draft going on with our listener league right now where the rookie picks are in the draft. So as we're trying to figure out where these draft picks are going to fall, seeing who might be worth taking guys at that slot, I've kind of found that there's just, and we're seeing this more widely as well, that there's just kind of no consensus to what's going to happen in this draft. I'm finding Cam Ward is the easiest thing. We've got Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter probably going into the top 5. But as we move there, like Tet has fallen back off of his previous top 5 standing. Some questions about Shedeur Sanders, as we've talked about, maybe a little rise for his name's Dart, bro. So we're going to talk about all that, boys, but I want to know just from the surface level, Joe, like, do you remember a draft class that had so little consensus, and wonder if we can spin maybe a little advantage to be found in fantasy football off of that?
I don't know that I can think of one that had so little consensus because we have, the combination of not a strong quarterback class, not a strong wide receiver class, a deep tight end class, and a deep running back class. But like outside of Janty and Hampton, there are, varying degrees of big tiers. So from a skill position standpoint and from a fantasy standpoint, I feel like there's very little consensus. And then overall, I mean, if you're looking at it, there's not that many O linemen. There's a few good pass rushers. There's not that many great corners. So like overall, I think it's like not a great draft for fantasy purposes is being buoyed by the running back class. And I kind of want to only just speak to the fantasy component of it because I'm not going to pretend to go in depth on linebackers and things of that nature. But to answer your question, I do think there's edge to be found. I think there's a really great way to find edge, and that's by using our UN model, which comes out next week following the draft. I mean, it actually, I'm doing, as we talked about last week, I'm doing kind of the write ups on these receivers, and it's really helped sort of crystallize where I had these guys ranked. And it's really showing me sort of where the arbitrage opportunities are because we've got projected draft capital and that's baked into the existing scores, but we won't have the final scores until we get the actual draft capital. But I can already tell just by using the UN model and like writing this stuff up, kind of who the values are going to be and where I'm going to be targeting them in rookie draft. So I think there's edge there. I think there's also edge in like when in doubt, just go running back this class, right? Just go running backs and tight ends. And if you're going to take a wide receiver, make sure it's an arbitrage play because there's some differences in the projected draft capital and like how these guys look analytically. So that's where the edge is like the delta between where they get drafted and what their analytical profile says, or just, hammering the stronger positions in fantasy, which this year is running back and tight end. I think that's where the edge is. It's like a shotgun approach on where the depth of talent is and, arbitraging the mispriced assets.
And I think that's reflected in rookie draft ADP as well. What we're seeing, some of these guys are getting pushed up. Some of that stuff that we've talked about as well, Jax, like you were talking about, if I'm looking at Ashton Genty, why wouldn't I just move back and maybe take an Omarion Hampton? Or if I'm looking at Tet McMillan, why wouldn't I just move back and maybe take a Jaden Higgins as well? So I like that take, Jax. Joe, you got any, or I like that take, Joe. You guys got 2 J names, by the way, and it fucking throws me off
Well,
from time to time.
You can call me Scott if you need to, if it a little easier
I
for you.
can't though because I've
know.
called you Jax for
I
so
know.
long that it's weird to me. But
Yeah.
You call me Joe Quave.
Joe,
Quave.
no, it's okay.
Quave.
I got
Just
it.
call me
I got it.
Quave.
That's like the first time I've really messed it up bad. So
What up,
I'll give
Quave?
myself some
Oh,
credit. What's up,
speaking of
Quave?
messing things up, Joe Quave falling off the.
No Cam,
Perfect. Just
no
do the
Cam
show like
Quavo.
that.
We're all good. We're all good.
Are we though?
We're only about 5 minutes in, boys. We may or may not be.
I'm gonna leave that alone.
I think the NFL, is seeing the wide receiver class a little bit similar to the way, well, quite frankly, I saw the wide receiver class, and whether or not you guys were with me or not, I can't really remember, to be honest. But I thought Tet was closer to the pack than Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr. were as prospects. And what else agrees with me is the UN score. That there's not this elite guy. And that's where I had a hard time with Tet. It's not an anti-Tet. It's like Tet in the same phylum as T. Higgins and Roma Dunze. Roma Dunze was a top 10 pick. I mean, that's a hefty praise, but Roma Dunze was no elite prospect. He was a good prospect who was going to get draft capital. He's still a good player. I'm sure he's going to be fine. But if Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr. weren't in that class, he wouldn't have been worthy of a top 2 pick in a superflex draft. As I feel the same about Tet McMillan, and so I think the NFL is kind of saying, wait a minute, if I can get Jaden, they're sort of saying, if I can get Jaden Higgins at the top of round 2, shouldn't I take a cornerstone tackle and Jaden Higgins as opposed to Tet and whatever's crap is left at the offensive line early second? And yeah, the answer is yes, you should do that, NFL. So Tet McMillan sort of should fall in the draft. But again, it takes, one, not dumb team, but one sort of team to sort of misprice the value in a draft. It happens every year. And I think it's going to happen with Matthew Golden. I think he's going to go early. We are skeptical. It's not that we don't like him as a player or whatever. We just think he's a bad bet at cost at this particular point. I don't hate players. I hate ADPs. And in terms of running backs, the key that I'm seeing here, and I've been feeling this way about, I said it on multiple shows. I don't remember how many times now, maybe too many. Maybe this is going to be a broken record, but the running back position especially on Friday night, but over the weekend, is going to cause havoc. Like literally, sometimes it's going to be the guy who gets drafted who is crushed. Sometimes it's going to be wherever the guy goes, the guy who is there, the incumbent, gets crushed. We don't know. We just don't know where these guys are going to get drafted. And if there's 20 running backs, there's not 20 fertile spots for them to land. There just isn't. So how that all shakes out is going to be a nightmare and a mess. And it's going to really change the values of what we think. It's kind of like the Braylon Allen, Charbonnet type of thing, but with more than just one guy per year now. It's been like one guy this happens to. Well, this year it's going to happen to 5 to 10 dudes. You're going to be like, Jesus, why did they take him? They already have so-and-so and so-and-so. And you're going to have to deal with that. And we're going to have to deal with that. And I think that could actually weaken this draft class, because right now we feel like there's 20 deep running backs. That's how we feel, because we like all these guys. We liked Isaiah Davis and Braylon Allen too, if you remember, pre-draft. They were good prospects. And so I think a lot of these guys are going to land in some really murky situations to poor situations. And that's going to change the value of those third-round picks. I wonder what will all happen. I mean, there's a lot to still unfold, but I think in general, I do see the sort of late third, early fourth, where we see value right now, maybe not so valuable once it all hits the ground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point there. And I think that brings us kind of into sort of our next topic that we were going to talk about here, is kind of the class and the impact that it's going to actually have
Yeah.
on the dynasty landscape, right? So it's going to murk a lot of these guys, and a lot of these guys that we like as these rookies are going to get murked as well. And so, Joe, I'm going to kick it to you, and I'm just wondering, like, do you think that it will water down the running back position? Like, do you think, not necessarily just from a class perspective, like you said, Jax, but from overall, like, say we're in a startup draft right now. Like I said, if we're in that startup draft 2 months from now, do you think we're going to have a hard time figuring out which one of these running backs are going to fit because there's so many? Or do you think we can attach ourselves to some of these studs that are coming in?
Wait, real quick, I just want to touch on the point Jax just made in terms of the wide receiver class and Tet in particular, because
Mm-hmm.
Tet is probably going to be outside of outside of why am I blanking?
Travis Hunter?
Golden?
Travis Hunter, excuse me.
Oh, yeah,
Outside of Travis Hunter, Tet's going to be probably the first wide receiver taken, right? And
Yeah.
there are 6 other receivers at least sort of in his range from an analytical standpoint.
Yeah.
And most of those 6 are going to be available in the second round of your rookie drafts. And so, just to your first question, Trav, that's the arbitrage I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's different opportunity afforded to guys that are drafted in the top 10 or top 15 of the NFL draft and guys that are drafted in the top 50 or the top 60 or whatever. But just from an analytical standpoint, there are arbitrage plays. All right. So on to your next question about, changing the landscape of the RB position. Is that what we're talking
Yep.
about?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I have conflicting thoughts on this, and I've heard really smart people talk about it from both angles, right? I've heard in the last week or two, Rich Rebar and JJ Zacharyson and Matt Kelly talking about how like this influx of running backs is going to make all of the existing running backs in the NFL less valuable, because there's going to be, more timeshare situations and more splitting of carries and more, the pie is going to get bigger, but everybody's slice is going to get smaller sort of at the running back position. And so it's going to kind of water the whole position down.
Mm.
Then, I was reading Stealing Signals the other day. Ben Gretsch has kind of the opposite opinion, where he thinks that like that's always been the case. And we've been in this sort of split backfield, paradigm now for a decade or close to it. And what are you talking about? Like an influx of talent and really talented players is sure to produce more stars and more superstars. And I find myself landing more in that camp. I think the conventional wisdom is that the position is going to get watered down because of more players. And I really think the way this works, it's a zero-sum game still.
Agree.
Sure,
Mhm.
there are, more split backfields now, but that's already the paradigm that we're in. What's going to happen is dudes are going to get pushed down. those starters are going to get pushed into backup roles. They're going to be the 40 and the 40-60 timeshare,
Yes.
right? That's what's going to happen. Talent wins the day.
Yes.
Running back is a position of rhythm and also, being able to be multiple in your approaches, right? And so dudes that have the 3-down skill set and that can catch and that can pass block are going to stay on the field. Now we have like this class that has like a lot of 2-down grinders, and it's also got a lot of dudes that are kind of profile as pass catchers, and then a few that have kind of the complete back skill set. But I tend to land in the Ben Gretsch camp of more good running backs is a good thing, and it's going to lead
Mhm.
to more fantasy stars, and that, the position's already watered down. And so we shouldn't be worrying about that as much. So if anything, I don't know, maybe it's going to make it like a more valuable position that we prioritize even more, but it's going to take a year
Mhm.
or two to shake out and know kind of, wait for the cream to rise to the top sort of situation.
Let me share something with you. In 2018, there was this dope running back class. And in that dope running back class, there were 7 running backs taken in the first 2 rounds, 8 total in the first 3 rounds, with some good prospects that followed that up. Let me share with you, outside of Saquon Barkley, who went first, let me share with you those players. Drafted second was Rashad Penny. Rashad Penny was dope in college. Go
Mm-hmm.
look at his metrics and you'll be like,
Oh, yeah.
wait, how did he not, totally crush? Sony Michel drafted in the first round. Nick Chubb turned out, obviously. Ronald Jones, Kerryon Johnson, and Darius Geis. So
Mm-hmm.
even when you think, and then by the way, Royce Freeman, people liked him too. I mean, and he was kind of that 4th, 5th, 6th back in that class, depending on how you liked it. I remember I had it Saquon, Geis. Of course, Darius flamed out for other reasons, injury
Mm-hmm.
and lunacy. But the point here I'm making is that there's also busts. There's injuries, there's busts, there's all sorts of mayhem that will take place post draft. Just stuff will be like,
Mm-hmm.
we'll be like, dude, I remember Kerryon Johnson. People were like, would you trade all of your 2019 picks for Kerryon Johnson? And it was like not ironic, and it was like, well, maybe that's a good move to trade all your picks for Kerryon Johnson. He's good. Like, this was the consensus. This was where Dynasty was at that time. I'm just telling you, like, we think we know so much, and like we kind of got it all figured out. What I'm always saying, right? Be ready to be wrong, is ultimately a matter of just saying, okay, there's going to be trapdoors, there's going to be mayhem, there's going to be carnage. Not everybody's going to hit their look at the you can look at any class, but like the recent one, everybody gets hurt. It's crazy. You can go down every class and be like, that just didn't work out for that class. That's how it goes. So, long story short, and I didn't mean to ramble there, but
That's
is
good.
is the idea of just realizing that shit ain't going to go the way you think it's going to go. There's going to be irregularities to all this, and that's why running backs are a little bit more dangerous. For these reasons, if they get parked behind someone, you could have a Aaron Jones situation where you think you've got the right guy. We were right about Aaron Jones. I remember loving Aaron Jones and being like, dude, but he just never really got on the field enough early on. And you know what I'm saying? So you can be right about the prospect. It turned out we were pretty right about him, but the situation doesn't work out for him, or whatever the case. And I think a lot of these things are what's gonna be the downside of what you're talking about. But I agree with you. Nick Chubb is inevitable, right? He's going to rise to the top. He was behind, I think, Carlos Hyde at the time, and people were like, well,
Yeah.
not a good landing spot. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
none of that shit matters.
Yep. Well, and not only that, but like we just had the healthiest running back season I can ever remember,
Mhm.
right? Where
True.
we just ran pure running back stayed healthy. All the wide receivers got hurt, which is typically not the case. Not only that, but like those guys from the 2017 and 2018 class, they're starting to age out,
Yep.
right? So if it's not this year, it's soon. That cliff comes for everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
you mentioned Aaron Jones, you mentioned Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon, Derrick Henry, CMC, Kamara. Like that's 6 guys that are not going to be on our fantasy rosters in what, next year, 2 years, right? They're going to be gone. And this is the class that's going to backfill them. This is the influx of talent at the position right when we need it. It looks bad now. the outlook isn't great for 2025 when you look at these landing
Yeah.
spots, but in 2026, 2027, this is the class that's going to prevail. And this is going to be the class that produces all those guys we're still talking about in 2029 and 2030, waiting for that next great running back class. This is a, once or twice a decade type of class. I hate to use the G word, but
Yeah.
and that's what
No,
we're talking
it's
about.
it's damn near that if things kind of shake right. And I wanted to kind of jump in there because I've kind of been I have something half taked to kind of add
Oh,
on
let's go.
top
Half
of.
taked. We need a
Well,
good
it's
half
not
taked.
necessarily like a player take or anything. It's more of like a philosophical take, right? And it's
Perfect.
kind of
Mm.
an attachment to be ready to be
Right up
wrong.
our aristocratics,
Because yeah, right, because we're
alleys.
always ready to be wrong, and I think when we are ready to be wrong is when we know that we've used the right process, right? And I think what we're saying is that there is so much talent at running back that if you take some lumps in the first year, you're still making the right process play, and with those lumps, you can just my take is you can just charge them to the game, right? Because you're
Mhm.
making the right play. It's a part of the deal. They're going to go into places where they are going to take some of these lumps, where we've been super excited to the point where it's almost felt like these guys are just going to come into 3 down rolls. But I think we maybe have to just back off a little bit of that just because we've been so excited, because that's the bell of the ball for this class is the running backs. And I think what it is going to create here, just to finish off, Jax, before I flip to
Please.
you, is that it has been watered down with 1As and 1Bs all across the league. But what's been happening is the 1Bs have been subpar. So I think what this is going to do is going to create a lot more desirable 1Bs where we want the 40 in that 60-40, maybe more so than we have on some teams whose second running back we haven't necessarily wanted to attach to previously, right? Because I think the talent is going to eventually win out of some of these situations when kind of the debris falls out of the way for them. So that process is there. And that's kind of my half take, is that we're ready to be wrong. And if we are wrong, we can just charge it to the game.
Yeah. And I'm always, doing this to some degree, and that is being willing to trade out of my pick. I'll be a little bit more strident with these types of takes after the draft, where I can sort of analyze, where these guys landed, etc. But I mentioned how much I love Darius Geis. I remember Geis got, he was going to be the 102 in that draft for me, and I sold the 102 and the 104 or 5 or 6. I don't remember what, those two picks in one of the leagues I was in for basically 3 future first round picks. They ended up becoming CeeDee Lamb, JT, and something else. So, the Darius Geis Royce Freeman pick, which I was like, man, I'm really just handing one of my competitors a advantage for the next couple of years. And turned out I didn't hand him anything. It was awful for that person, and that's the ready to be wrong. I would be looking at, especially in the spots where Tet McMillan's going to get picked. If it's like the 104 and it went like, Omarion, Genty, and Cam Ward, and it's like, dude, someone's hot to shop for. I'd be shopping that 104. Take a future first and a 205 this year or something, dude. Hammer that, because you're going to get Higgins and a future first. It's like, dude, you might win twice. I mean, I would be willing to sort of trade out of some of these picks and even just move back sometimes. Sometimes you can get all that. So again, I'll be really interested because of the arbitrage plays. And again, we do need to see how these tiers end up post draft, because they will change for sure, for sure. But I think in general, that's something that, first of all, I'm always kind of willing to do. But like when it's a Malik Neighbors pick, you're going to have to pay me like stupid, because I have the belief that Malik Neighbors was going to be a superstar. If I'm holding the Tet McMillan pick, I don't have that conviction based off of all the things that we know about these prospects and how we evaluate them, UN score model included. And for reasons of that nature, I'm just not going to be as married to that pick. But if I can sell it for the pick's value, sure, why not?
All right, so you just got my wheels turning. I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, but I
Good.
kind of want to talk about the 102
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like that's the biggest sort of inflection point in our rookie drafts. Janty's the 101 in just about every format, every league, no matter what. I feel like you just don't not draft Janty.
Right.
For the 102, I'm going to give you a real life example. I'm in a FFPC Triflex league. It's Superflex, tight end premium. In FFPC, you can only carry 20 players. So it's not super deep. You can't just fill the back end of your roster with a bunch of running backs, right? So you need kind of stars because you can't just be rostering a bunch. And you can't just roster a bunch of quarterbacks either. So right now,
Yep.
my quarterbacks are Matthew Stafford and I've got Bo Nix. And I don't have any other quarterbacks. I traded them away for more picks. And I traded up to the 102. And I want to trade back. I think that's ideal is find somebody who wants to trade up with me and hopefully I can land Jackson Dart at like the 104, 105 and pick up some extra draft capital on the way. But in the scenario where I can't do it, I'm on the clock, I'm working it for a few hours, I can't trade back. I've got a pick right there,
Cam Ward.
right? I think
I
I
think
got to
so
take
too.
Cam Ward right there
Yeah.
too, right?
Yeah.
I think I
The
just I
value
have to.
insulation is too fat. The value
Yeah.
insulation is too
Yeah,
fat.
I've got like Ramondre and Najee Harris and Tyrone Tracy, so I don't really need another running back. And I've got second round picks. I'll be able to do it there, but I just feel like I'm nervous about Ward. I feel better about Dart, but I don't feel like from a process play I can do that. I can't just fade the 101 in the real NFL draft with the
Right.
102 in my dynasty draft, right? So
It's going to depend on where Dart gets drafted, of course. I mean,
sure,
we
I
just
don't think
played
I can do it.
we just played
Yeah,
the Todd McShay clip where it's possible that he goes 3 to the Giants. He wasn't really saying that. He was just saying that there's probably some talk about getting Dart and do we pick him at the 103? Not that they will, but nonetheless, he could get steamed to the Saints. There's a
9,
lot
yeah.
of ways that Dart. I know Dart's been talked about, and there's a lot of people basically saying that Shedeur and Dart are not worth a high end first round draft pick, which I probably think is true. I don't think either prospect is like, oh yeah, for sure. I even said, why can't Dart kind of be the Bo Nix, Kenny Pickett range, which is that sort of mid
yeah.
first where people feel a little bit more comfortable. Steelers or someone trades back, gets trades in, whatever the case. Long story short, that whole maneuver of moving back off of the Cam Ward to a different quarterback is one way to play it. The other way to play it could be to move back off of the 102 and get yourself yet another, a third quarterback. I don't know, in the Dak Prescott range.
Mm-hmm. I've
Where
been thinking about this too.
you know what I mean, where you get something like that. Trevor Lawrence is stinky right now. Nobody likes him. I think he's going to be less stinky.
I actually already
Brock
tried for
Purdy.
Trevor Lawrence. I
There you
already
go.
tried for Trevor Lawrence. I tried the 102 for like Trevor Lawrence and like
Plus, yeah.
Olave, and he said no.
No, thank you. But even
Dang.
like a late second or mid second ish, you kind of get to re-roll. I mean, because what do we just do in a startup? I mean, I don't think the Trevor Lawrence was pretty close to wherever the 102 to 104s were. I mean, not crazy far
Mhm.
away.
Yeah.
So in other words, I think if Cam Ward were in a startup, it's a conversation. I think I'd prefer Trevor almost. You know what I mean? It's like
I
so.
think I would too. I think
So
I
I
would
think if
too.
you can
I don't
even
know. I think I might go the other way and just take kind of the untapped and the additional shelf life potential of Cam Ward, despite the fact
true
that we're
that,
not as certain of that shelf life, right? Because look at Trevor Lawrence. He's done nothing but disappoint. Like we like him and we
yeah,
want him to be good, but he was supposed to be the G word and
yeah.
Yeah.
he has
Well,
not been
yeah.
anything close to that. So we've already seen him take a massive downturn to where I don't necessarily think he's going to take the upturn to meet the expectations previously. You know what I mean? So I think I might go with Cam
This
Ward
this
because
is true.
honestly, he only has room to impress on our expectations relative to a guy who's going with the number 1 overall pick, right? Like I don't remember a quarterback going with the first overall pick who we had so little faith. And my recall
I
is
agree.
terrible, so I might not have that great a
I can't
recall on
remember
the
either, but I'm
classes.
not. Yeah, I'm with you
But you know what I
1,000%,
mean?
Trav.
He
I
And
think it's
not
a
only
only
great
has
point.
room to increase the value,
Yep,
and as a quarterback
and
in a super flex league and as your quarterback 3 on your team, who's
yep.
not even necessarily having to start every week, he'll at least be a serviceable quarterback 2 in an injury situation, and so I think you go Cam Ward there
and,
even
and
over
not
T-Law.
and
Yeah,
not only that, but I think there's also just the built-in value insulation of these early picked quarterbacks,
there
right?
it
Like
is.
the 101 is going to hold value even if he flames out, everyone's kind of expecting him to flame out this year. No one's expecting him to be a good fantasy player. He's got this longer term commitment. So he would
Yeah.
have to flame out in historic fashion to lose too much value. And I've
Even look at
still got
Bryce Young.
Stafford.
Bryce
Yeah,
Young was
exactly.
about as bad as it can get, and he's completely rebounded his value, and he didn't really do that much more in year 2. So, I
Yeah.
mean, he did
And
more,
I
but
mean, like he bottomed out in like October of
Yeah.
2024, but preseason you could get a first round pick for Bryce Young still,
absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
And then he
Of course.
bottomed out in October, and then he's kind of rebounded, and he's still probably, he's probably fetching you a second in Dynasty right now. I would say
Yeah,
like
I
an
would
early
think.
second. Yeah.
And what
Yeah.
happens? What
Easily.
happens when maybe they go a wide receiver at the top of the second round, or what happens if they draft a stud wide receiver next year? I think you get another bump on the value if they start to build around Cam Ward in Tennessee, because there's not much around him. So I mean, they can only build around him more, right? They're not
Yeah,
necessarily
I
going to get
think
worse
that's
around
right.
him.
I think that's right. All right, so let's just take a step back
Okay.
from my particular situation in this very specific FFPC league, and
But
let's just talk about the
by the way, real quick, Bryce Young went right around the 112, 201 in our startup.
yeah, I know.
So right at
He
the
held
right at the
his value
turn.
is held. His value is held, and he hasn't played great. You're
Yep.
right. You're right. It's take the quarterback, and if you feel bad about it, move him next year. But right now, I've got the pick. I got to take the quarterback. I agree with you. All right, but let's move out of like. I think we can all agree in a non-super flex draft, we're not taking any of these quarterbacks. Maybe Ward sometime in the first round if you need a quarterback, but you're really not taking any of these quarterbacks in the first round in non-super flex league. So let's just talk
I'm
about
not even
super flex
thinking
league.
about a quarterback in the first
I'm not
round of
even
a
thinking
non-super
about it.
league.
I agree.
No.
I agree. So let's just talk about super flex then. Like,
Yep.
is the consensus 102 Cam Ward in a super flex league?
No.
I don't think so either.
Probably not.
This is why I'm so torn, because I want to take Omarion, right? But anyways.
Right. Yeah. Well, you can take Amari Hampton. I don't know what other picks you have. I don't know what other opportunities you
I
have.
like the 206 is my next pick. So I get no core. I'm taking like a Milbro at that point and hoping and praying.
Or
Yeah.
or packaging the 206 for someone's third or fourth quarterback that they don't love, that gives you a little longer term insulation. I don't know.
Nobody has a fourth quarterback because the rosters are so shallow. No one's carrying
A
more than
Geno
3.
Smith.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have Stafford. I love Stafford at
Yeah,
value. I
me
mean,
too. Me too. It's
Stafford
money.
just absolutely stealing money right now. He went in the 10th round of this draft. Absolutely ridiculous. So
I know. I have regrets about that. We can
me
talk
too.
about that later.
Hey, who's
But
your other quarterback? Stafford and who? Stafford and who do you have?
I've got Bo
Nick.
Nix.
Okay, so
Yeah,
Bo
that was
Nix you're
found
pretty
money.
confident in. What if you even pulled
This was
like
a
a
Deshaun Watson team where I like just
Mhm.
drafted Bo Nix because I did not feel good about Watson, and like thank God Bo Nix
See what I'm
hit.
saying? That's the kind of
Yeah,
the point of
exactly.
leaning into quarterbacks even when you
Lean
don't
into the
love them.
quarterback. Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
you could even go like with a mini version of our super flex full dynasty roster strategy, and you could even try like a patchwork situation, like add Jimmy G behind Matt Stafford, and at least you're covered for injury. Like I know Bo Nix could get injured too, but he's less of a risk, I guess. So I mean, even a patchwork job where during the bye you're starting a non-quarterback, and then you're just kind of insulating for injury and
Yeah.
praying, but I mean, you're not going in
I
there with
want a
like a clenched
succession plan.
asshole.
I
Yeah.
I like
Of course you
I
do.
like have yeah, I like having a succession plan in a super
Yeah,
flex league. I don't want to mess with it. I want to know I don't have to solve
totally.
a huge problem next year.
No, I do
Totally.
agree, and I think you're always solving the quarterback problem in Dynasty. It's crazy. I think I had a team. I think I had Deshaun Watson. I drafted Anthony Richardson. I had Lamar. It's like, dude, when I was like, dude, I could the fucking quarterbacks coming out the wazoo. I'm good. And of course, you lose Deshaun and Anthony Richardson weren't even my starters. They were like extra guys, and now they're legitimately just extra guys. So
Mhm.
it's funny how it is. You sometimes think you've solved it, because certainly when I did that, nobody was like, I have Kyler, I think, in that league too. It was like Kyler, Lamar. It just was stupid. And now all of a sudden it's a little thinner. I'm still good because I've
Mhm.
got like 3. I forget someone else. But this was a league where I was stacked at quarterback, and things just sort of happen where you're like,
Yep.
all of a sudden you're not. And so I think you're
Mhm.
always solving it. And quarterbacks are one of those things where you just mentioned nobody has a fourth quarterback in that league.
Yeah.
So maybe that tells you what you need to know. You need the quarterback.
Yeah. I agree.
Just what
I
you
agree.
need.
All right.
Well,
So
and one other thing just on that, maybe you even catch, like, you won't love it, but maybe you even catch a Jalen Milroe gets steamed up in the NFL draft a little bit, where maybe you get him at that 206 still, right? To a point where you can kind of stomach that pick, seeing that he has maybe a clearer path depending on where he lands. He wouldn't be able to get steamed up too far, because I think if he goes in the first round, you have no chance of
No
getting him at
chance.
the
No,
206.
yeah, no
But
chance.
if he goes in the second round to a spot where he's like a guy away, I don't think he's that bad a play at the 206 with that.
No.
I
As much
think
as we
that
don't love him as a
But it's
quarterback, you
hard
know
to
what I mean?
roster Jalen Milroe in that type of league because you basically are betting on future. And when cut down day comes next year, he's going to be like, I want to cut him because I want to keep another
Yeah, the
productive player.
landing
that's
spot
right.
would have to be
The
pristine.
backup
It'd
No,
have to be
yeah.
a
quarterback
I
pretty
is
mean,
nice
tough.
spot.
Trav, you touched on this. I don't know if it was last week or 2 weeks ago. Like, Milroe is this super interesting player because in a single QB league, he's got the highest value proposition. But in a super flex league, he's got like the lowest value proposition. What you need in a super flex league is certainty, and what you need in a single QB league is upside. So it's like I'd be more inclined to take Milroe in the second round of a single QB league than I would be in a super flex league. I'm not
Yeah,
risking it in a super flex league though. I need that player.
Yes. Yep.
fair.
All right,
Moving on.
but so all right, going back to the 102 conversation. All right, so it's like
Yeah. No, this is
I
I
don't
have
want
to
to
say,
I don't want to
this
leave
is
this
flowy
lingering
convo,
because it's like
so do it.
Ward is there if you need a quarterback. Ward is there. That's where we're landing. And if
Yeah.
you don't need a quarterback, I think it's Hampton. And I don't think we're considering Tet. And I don't think we're really considering Hunter there. Like, it's basically running back, or running back quarterback. Yeah.
Yeah, for me,
What if, like,
Travion's going to come into this play, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He's been my RB2. I still think I kind of have him there. I don't
ooh,
really need to fight that fight yet because we don't know where they're drafted. We don't know their situation. And, for me, I've said that those next four guys are basically in some sort of a group, the Caleb, Quinshawn,
Yep.
Travion, Omari. And I think Travion has the biggest sort of, explosion, top three sort of supernova type of player in him. If he goes, I heard some people talking about him going to Kansas City, talking about him going to Washington, him playing with Jaden Daniels
Yeah.
with that speed
mhm,
RPO. I
That could
mean,
change my opinion.
bro, dude, that would be very electric. I mean,
unreal. With
yeah,
Kingsbury?
just have a lot of pressure on the defense. With I don't know what the hell you're going to do about all that because there's just so much speed. It's not like Brian Robinson where it's like, well, either they hand it to him, we'll catch this big motherfucker or whatever. But they're not so worried and stressed and pressured by Brian Robinson breaking it. But with Travion, they would be. I think it'd be an amazing youthful combination for years to come. So there's outs for Travion even in the late first, early second, where he could get the nuts. And some of those spots are pretty tantalizing. And look, Omarion could go someplace where we're not too excited about it at all.
Mhm.
We don't have to get into that where we can. I don't really care. I mean, ultimately, we're days away from finding out, so it's not a big deal. But there are some great spots and some worse spots. The Genty thing too. I mean, as much as I almost called him Oakland, but Las Vegas is fine. He could go to the Saints. He could go to the Bears. I think
The Jaguars.
you think that's
Brett
going to happen?
Whitefield.
All
Brett
right, can we can
Whitefield
we can
had
we
him.
talk about that for a second?
Please.
Yeah, one
Oh
sec.
my god,
Whitefield had him drafted to the Giants too. So he's
that
kind of
would be
all over the place,
hilarious. The Giants
isn't
just
it?
trying to get Saquon back.
Yeah, yeah,
That would be so
be
funny.
incredible. Joe Shane at his finest.
Yeah,
Waste 5 years of Janty's career.
that would be fucking the greatest thing I think I could ever see in my
Oh
life.
my god. No, but like the Jags are very live for Janty right now, allegedly.
Allegedly.
Mm.
And I, as a Raiders fan, am thrilled about this prospect because who's the only team dumber than us?
That
It's the
reminds me of
Jags.
Harbaugh. That reminds me of
Yeah.
who's got it better than we?
Yeah, who's got it worse than us? The Jags. The Jags
What
have it worse
team's
than us.
dumber than we
Yeah.
are?
Oh
The
shit, that's
Jags.
great.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that.
So it's like the Jags could save us from ourselves, and
Yes.
then we could just take the tackle that we should be taking at the
Yes.
106 if the Jags just sneak in and take Janty at the 105. So I'm actually now rooting for that. But what would that mean? That would mean that Travis Etienne is probably getting traded. And like those trade talks are very real, allegedly. And so,
right.
and I know how dumb that
I
just
think
sounded.
it also could be an opportunity for the Bears to be moving up where they're, so the Bears may be dumb enough to trade up into the top 5 for a running back, which would be the one upper. They would one up
Oh
the
yeah.
Jags and be like, not only will we take him at 5, we'll trade up to take him at 5.
Yeah.
It's like,
Mm.
whoa, you guys are really stupid. So
Yeah.
that's possible, which would be fucking great.
As long as the Raiders end up with the tackle, I'm good with any of these scenarios. But yeah, so Janty's like, it seems like he's going top 5 or 6. I think that's the firewall. People have talked about 9. I
I'm
don't think
not
he's
sure.
fallen that far.
I'm not sure if it's the firewall because things could, Jacksonville could be blowing some smoke to try and get action to move back because they have a bigger tier after, which would make sense that they have a big tier because there is one after 5, at 5 and they're basically saying, look, Genty is the 5th best player in this draft, which is probably true, or in the top 5. I mean, he's a dope player. He's obviously just positional value is the reason we don't want to take him in the top 10 or whatever, but it's so that all makes sense, especially if you're an idiot. And if there's an idiot in Chicago who would believe all this to make the trade, that'd be amazing. Also could be, New Orleans doing something stupid. So I think Jacksonville probably isn't doing this, but they could be trying to get someone to make a stupid move. If they do that, they end up taking, a completely different player, whether it be Mason Graham or whatever. And then you see Genty fall past the Raiders by chance if they take the offensive lineman, which is very possible as well. I mean, you do have to point out that, Pete Carroll has been around a long time. He does know how to win, and he does know that it's an offensive line. I mean, how far ahead is Genty as a prospect than Banks or Membu or Campbell if he fall, whoever, one of those 3 guys? I mean, you'd have to be way ahead of him to skip the tackle at that positional value, right? So, I mean, it's possible they get smart, and then it falls all the way to Chicago or Dallas.
I
Well,
have the best
Memphis
dumb
Young.
move ever in my head right now, but you go first, Joe.
Well, Memphis Young on the Undrafted on your podcast, Jax, he brought up this great fake trade scenario that actually made way more sense than I think he even realized or explained, where he talked about Charbonnet getting traded to the Raiders because of
Yes.
Geno Smith loves him, Pete Carroll loves him.
Yes.
What he failed to mention is that Chip Kelly actually coached him at UCLA too.
Damn,
There is a third connection
son.
where he
Yes.
recruited him over from
Buy Zach Charbonnet
Michigan?
now.
Michigan. Yeah. So there are
Wow, that's
3
great.
points. There are 3 points of connection there. And I was just like, oh my God. I'm super interested in that move because then we take the tackle, maybe we take a wide receiver around 2, and then we, trade a 3rd round pick and get Charbonnet and maybe, Sam Howell too. Now I'm kind of wish casting as a Raider fan, just like handle the backup quarterback and starting running back with one fell swoop.
I also think Charbonnet's agent, I think his agent's side piece lives in Vegas too. Just another.
Oh, yeah, that helps. Yeah, that helps.
Another way of it.
Did you meet her last weekend or what?
Seattle's trying to stockpile picks with the DK trade,
Yeah.
right?
No,
And
for
so
sure.
they're trying to add some more picks, and so I think that's total realm of possibility.
Yes.
I have a
Oh
good one
man,
for you guys.
we're off the rails now. We're talking about like what trades do you guys want to see happen?
This is
No, that's
fuck
but
it.
this
We're
is
like a
trying
day
to
away
figure it
from the
out.
draft.
This
That's
one
what
makes
this
sense.
is
what
This
it's
is
all
not
about.
connected.
Like-
I'm like Charlie and Sunny right
What
now.
if all this
I'm
shit
just
happens
gonna-
on draft day and you're just like, boom, I told
I got
you.
one.
We should
Go
do
for
that.
it.
We should do some
I
wild
got one.
speculation. Just see if we look like
I
geniuses.
think that's what we're
in 3
doing,
days.
pal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what's happening here, and it's magical if you ask me. So check this out. It's draft day morning. Shad Khan sitting in his office, wondering what he's going to do. He gets a phone call. Beep, boop, 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 beep. Hello, it's Shad Khan. Shad, it's Jarrah. There's a thoroughbred at the top of this draft, and we're coming up to take his ass at 5. What do you want for him? Jerry motherfucking Jones coming up from 12 to 5 to take Ashton Genty and paying a boatload of picks
Yes.
would be the best ever trade up move that I might have ever seen. And I know that I have a little bit of bias in the comedy that I would find in that, but that would be better than any trade up situation for a team doing something dumb. And I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I actually
not
saw
out
I
of
was
the realm of
watching McAfee today, And apparently Jerry was at some press conference for something or some radio show, and he said, we actually have two things potentially in the works that could be going down in the next couple of days, he said. And so we don't know what that is, if it's coming out of Jerry's mouth, but if it was him trading up into the top 5 to take running back, I will pop huge for that.
Yes.
I think the likelier scenario is that the Cowboys are the team that they offload ETN to, right? I think
Yeah.
like they take Janty and then they sell ETN to the Cowboys for like a 3rd round pick or a 4th round pick or something like that. I think that's the likelier scenario.
Fair.
Let's
I
keep
think,
going. This is fun.
Yes.
that's
I love
1B.
this.
That's 1B. Okay, what else do we got here?
Who else
What
going to
else?
trade? I mean, all right. So Kirk Cousins trade candidate. Browns is kind of like writing on the wall. Derek Carr's live for a trade at this point, right?
Yep, for sure.
Who else? We just said ETN. Jameson Williams is rumored to be on the trading block.
I didn't hear that one. Where did that one come from? I actually have a fun quarterback one too. But where'd the JMO one come from?
I don't remember where it came from. I just saw it somewhere, and I was like, that makes sense to me because I think Jameson might have just had the best season he's ever going to have, and things
Fair.
aren't going to get much better. And then Pickens is also George Pickens is also live for a trade as well, which makes sense to me because him and Metcalf are a little bit
Totally.
redundant
Yeah.
in terms, like they're different types of players, but they're redundant in terms of the types of routes they're running and the part of the field that they occupy.
Yep.
So
I was
all
actually
those
thinking
make sense to me.
The Steelers could be a great trade destination for Kirk Cousins potentially. Like, you're thinking about the Steelers and what the fuck they're going to do at the quarterback position. They are stuck with only Aaron Rodgers or the draft at this point, right? And so if we're
Mason
thinking any other
Rudolph. I know
options,
that sounds
yeah,
ridiculous, but
come
yeah.
on, right?
Right.
And if you look
None of
at
that.
how erratic Cousins was last year, having a couple towers like Pickens and DK could maybe do him well. I don't think he's fully washed necessarily, just had a bad season. But on that note, on the Kirk Cousins thing, another wild thing that could happen on draft night, Seattle Seahawks at pick 18 pull a Penix and take Jackson Dart after just signing Sam Howell to a big contract. I don't know if there's any connections or
I mean,
anything, but
Sam
as I was
Darnold.
kind of
Yeah.
so sorry, Darnold, not Sam Howell. Yeah,
Right.
Sam Darnold. But you imagine they didn't sign him to a very long-term deal necessarily.
No, it's
And
as short as a 1-year deal.
the
Yeah.
Penix pick, which once looked absolutely terrible, is looking fairly rosy at this point.
It
So
sure as hell is.
could you imagine, like, and you see what just happened to Kirk Cousins? We think that is liable to happen to Sam Darnold going to Seattle. And so them having a little bit of an insurance policy wouldn't be necessarily terrible. Maybe, a pick 18 plus Sam Howell to trade up a couple picks or something like that, or whatever it might be. They wouldn't have to move that far if they
I
had
think
to.
it's smart. And what you're saying there is that there could be some sneaky teams who are interested
Something, right?
in
Miami, I'm
either,
thinking too.
in either Shedeur or Jackson Dart, right? Like, I know there's some Tyler Shuck and some people like this and that, but I think at the end of the day, those two guys are like polarizing for sure. But there's definitely a few GM scouts, etc. There's some people who are bought in 100% on both guys. You know what I mean? And so it only takes one sort of scout or one front office, one vein of the front office that gets all the way to the top that believes. And if all of a sudden the GM and owner believe, pick 14 sounds like a great plan or whatever the case, right? And so it could be a surprise team a la Atlanta and Michael Penix. I totally love that take. And, because we keep going up and down like, well, not them, not them, not them, not them. And
Maybe
we
them.
would have said that about Atlanta last year too. Not them. They just signed Cousins. So, maybe them is exactly right. I love that. Also, Mark Andrews and Dallas Goedert. Also, potential trade spots.
Live.
Yeah, they're live. And so in Dynasty before the draft, I mean, if you're, I missed out on Isaiah Likely, kind of screwed that up. I mean, Likely, Calcaterra, and Kohler are also all live. And Trav, you're not allowed to take either of those two players right now because you're on the clock because I just said that. If you do, dirty pool.
I think I actually just took somebody while one of you guys was talking. I made my pick.
Good.
So you're safe on me sniping you for Grant Calcaterra.
I mean, not that I think he's even next up or
Totally
whatever,
safe,
but
brother.
be a little
Yeah.
bit fucked up if I'm on the,
I love him. I
on
love
the
them.
air, and you're just like sniping me on backup tight ends I don't want in the 28th round.
No, I just made a league-winning pick with Elijah Moore in the 27th.
It's a good pick. There you go.
I think it's interesting too because another thing that we're gonna see is what were we just fucking talking about there, boys? A lot of these running backs that are gonna get their jobs taken are gonna see changes in teams potentially too, right? And so we're gonna see a little bit of change in that as well.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's the ETN.
Mhm.
There's some other players like that. But Dart, I mean, if you think about it, him and Shedeur, like, are we sold the Browns aren't taking a quarterback at number
No,
2? I know they've been talking about Carter, they've been talking about Hunter, but
I think they
last
have the
time I checked,
second.
they need a quarterback.
I think they have the second highest odds to take him right now on DraftKings. Let me just
Yeah, they
confirm that.
should, but
Second or third. Steelers have the highest odds when I checked earlier today, boys. At plus 190.
Hmm.
that's like assuming that he lasts that long or they trade up. But
Well,
there's
he always knows
so many
something we
teams.
don't.
I mean, the Saints are taking a quarterback, right? I think that's the firewall for QB2 is the Saints at 9. So I don't think Dart's falling
I'm
that
not so
far.
sure. I don't agree with that. I've heard a lot of people talking about, how there's been this thing where I've been hearing, and I don't know if this is just everybody sort of culminating with the same opinion or if this is sort of a leaked opinion, but it's like we might take them, but not with our first pick. Meaning
Mhm.
there's like a maybe we'll trade back up into the first or whatever, but with our first pick, and the idea is this is the guy that you hold up the uniform and introduce him to the franchise, and it's not going to be one of these two quarterbacks. I don't know
Yeah.
how much I believe that, but I've heard it on a number of occasions with different analysts in this sort of vein that yeah they may like him. The Giants may like him. Even McShay, you heard him just say that like it's their job to figure out where to take him and how to get him. Not that he can be taken at 3 because he's not
Yeah.
worth that pick. There's
Do
a lot of
you
those sentiments, and I'm not sure that they're real, Joe. I'm just saying they're really being said.
What about the Dolphins at 13? They seem live for a quarterback to
Oof,
me. I don't
love them.
trust who
potentially?
is going to
That's a little
make
bit
it.
high, I think, but they're on my dark horse teams as well. Rams
I don't think they're
potentially
a dark
too.
horse. I'd be looking to fix the quarterback position if I were the Dolphins. Tua is clearly not
Yeah.
the answer, and he's a concussion away from possibly retiring. Like, you can't really count on that.
Totally. Yeah, that'd be a crazy trigger to be pulled, right? Jax, I kind of wanted to touch on that last thing you said because I kind of tend to lean in your direction in thinking that 9 might not be necessarily the firewall for QB2. But would you also say that if the QB3 gets past the Steelers, that QB3 is probably not getting out of the first round with the sentiment of another team trading back up into the first? Because teams have been doing that a lot more to get that quarterback and get that extra year on the 5th-year option. So I kind of believe along with maybe QB2 sliding past the top 10, I don't think QB3 is getting out of that first round because I think there's some of those teams in the top of the second that are going to come back in if that QB3 gets past the Steelers.
Maybe, but here's the thing. When we were having this conversation in the Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis draft, a lot of the same things were being said about Matt Corral. I'm not saying that I think Matt Corral is the same type of prospect as Jackson Dart and Shedeur Sanders. I'm just saying I don't know. I don't know. And those guys slid all the way to the 3rd round. Shockingly, too, by the way. Sam Howell, who was my quarterback one in that draft, and kind of looking like he was the quarterback one of that class,
Aside from Brock Purdy, yeah.
right? And I like Brock Purdy in that class. I was like, what? I remember asking this question all throughout that offseason. It was like, wasn't Brock Purdy like this Devi Darling? Like, what happened? Why does nobody like him anymore? It was kind of like the
Yeah, yeah,
Quinn Ewers thing right now, where it's like, but I
totally.
thought Quinn Ewers was like a stud. Maybe Quinn Ewers is the next Brock Purdy. But anyway, long story short, is like he slid all the way to the 5th round. These things happen, and I can't explain them. I mean, Josh Rosen goes top 5, and Sam Howell goes in the 5th round. They're not that far away as prospects. This whole thing gets very, very weird when drafting quarterbacks. I don't know why. I don't know. It's a very strange, as all I'll say. And so, yeah, you could see one of these guys. I think they could both slide into the 2nd round. I wouldn't be shocked.
You just gave me a half take just
Oh,
now.
I love that.
What if Quinn Ewers is good and for the last 2 years all his receivers sucked?
Yeah. I thought you were going to say, what if he goes at the top of the 2nd
He's got a
round or in the
4.88
first?
40 tight end.
Yeah.
Who's like the
Yeah.
star.
Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond, Adonai Mitchell. All these guys suck. All he had
Suck.
was Xavier Worthy,
Yep.
and that was his best season.
Jonathan
Yeah.
Brooks, awful. Whatever. No, yeah.
Yeah. Roshan
He
was
was making
terrible.
everybody. Yeah.
I'm
Roshan was
joking. I'm
terrible.
joking. I'm joking, but I'm thinking about it.
Well, I'm ready to be wrong as always, and I like
Okay, so
that's the idea. So like he could go in a. That's the thing. We don't know shit. We just are basically taking the information. There could be a team that fucking loves Quinn Ewers is going to take him ahead of Shedeur and ahead of Dart. Late first, early second. They're maneuvering and they don't want nobody to know. They're silent as a fucking lamb, and they're going to come in and take him, and you'll be like, "What the fuck,
like
dude?"
Ricky Pearsall last year by the
Like Chad
Niners
from
when they took
Texas.
him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Chad
Jaden
from
Blue
Texas.
at the back of the first round. Yeah, Chad.
Yep.
Okay, I got two things to parlay off of kind of those conversations we had, boys, and they're just kind of funsies ones. First one is final predictions. Team that Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart land on. Jax Falcone.
Okay. Jackson Dart, New Orleans Saints.
Okay.
I don't know Shedeur. Give me a second. Let's see if he's got his ready.
I got my Shedeur ready.
Then do your Shedeur. I'll pick a
Shedeur
different one.
Sanders, Miami Dolphins.
Wow.
Damn,
It's a good fit.
son.
It's a good
Dion
fit.
would fucking love that.
Yes. It's
Wow.
a good fit.
Don't know if he's ousting Mike McDaniels as the head coach, though.
And then what do they trade Tua? Is that what you're saying?
Hey, Mike, you can be my OC, dog.
I don't know. Tua
What-
retires. I don't know.
What do you mean Tua retires? I'm Tua's agent. Go fuck yourself is what I got to say to
Tua
that.
is one of the
The other
most
one I'll say
fickle
is
fantasy
live.
starters.
Here's the other
He is.
fun live team. Here's the other fun live team I have for a quarterback. This is a sneaky one. Are the Arizona Cardinals a player for Jackson Dart? I kind of think they are.
I've been thinking the Jets are kind of sneaky for a quarterback because it's just Justin Fields on a 2-year, right? They can't be done at the position or think that they're done at the
No,
position.
they're drafting
so
a quarterback.
they're thinking succession, and so how high are they thinking it?
Yeah,
That'd be a great
that's
Quinn
interesting.
Ewers spot. I tell you that.
Well, I mean, they're in position at 7 to take whatever one they want outside of Cam Ward. So, I mean, yeah,
Just
that
don't
would be
forget, guys.
interesting.
Do not forget. His name is fucking Dart.
Bro.
We're talking about him in the teens. He's going in the top 10.
Oh,
We
His name
want
is
it, buddy,
Jackson
but we
Dart.
got to be realistic. And so here's my final, and it fits that to a T, Joe. I'm still thinking that Shedeur is going to go earlier, and I think that he could go to the Browns. So I'm going to say Shedeur to the Browns at 2, right after Cam Ward, and I
Wow.
think Jackson
Wow.
Dart. I think you were spot on, Jackson Dart to the Saints. Yeah. I don't think he's gonna. And so, like, it's funny that we say that because I was leaning with you saying that I don't necessarily think the firewall for quarterback 2 is 9, but I think where they're gonna go necessarily
I
is
think you're
that,
going to
not
be
the range
right.
of outcomes
I think you're going to be right, but I think you're going to be wrong.
in the
I think
order.
Cleveland is going to take Travis Hunter and then
Okay.
trade back up to get Shedeur
Right.
to go with Travis
At the
Hunter.
back of I've seen some of that too.
There
Yeah,
we go.
they pick
It
at
is
33.
Cleveland.
I
You're
like
right.
that.
They're going to
Hey,
make
in a
it work.
roundabout way, we got to it, baby.
That's what's going to
We
happen.
got to it. We made it there.
And the
What
Giants
do you
are
think
still
for
going to
Dart, Jack or Joe?
Huh?
What do you think for Dart, Joe?
I think Dart is going to be the second quarterback taken.
Bye.
I've been saying it for months. And I think the firewall is the Saints, like I was just saying.
Plant your
And
flag, Switzerland. Plant the flag, and where you think he's going to go. Tell me what team you think Jackson
Giants
Dart is going
3.
to
Let's
land on. You
go.
think
Giants
he's going to land on the
3.
Giants? Just say
Yeah.
he's going to land on the Giants then.
Yes.
The Giants
at
at 3. Wow.
Dayball wants Dart.
There's so many Ole Miss
That is
connections.
Deion Sanders. That is Deion Sanders insurance. You get Dart, Deion's not taking your job next year.
There's
Somebody
so,
else
like,
might, but it's not going to be Deion.
Right.
again, from McAfee, there are so many Ole Miss connections to Jackson Dart. Like Brian Dable has connections to who's coaching there, and also Joe Judge is actually the coach there, I think, right now, and he's got a lot of connections in the building still. Eli went there. One of their one of their assistant coaches has a kid who goes to Ole Miss and stuff. So there are a lot of connections there, and so that would be an interesting. Imagine all 3 of these guys went top 3. Imagine it's just Cam Ward, Shedeur, Jackson Dart after all this that we've talked
I
about.
I
don't
mean,
know.
as a
Oh,
Patriots fan, let's go 617.
yeah,
You're telling me, you're telling
100%.
me, you're telling me Dayball can't push freaking Joe Shane over. He can't. You tell me you can't bull him over to like
He,
we're taking Dart, bro.
he
His
can.
name's
Yeah,
Dart.
I think he
yeah,
can.
we've seen
And
you
I
make
think
bad
actually the
decisions
best
before,
way for
bud.
them to do that though would be to trade back. Um,
Probably.
because there's the Abdul Carter thing. Someone's going to want to come up and get him. I mean, even if it's a pick with New England, where it's like, hey, bro, if you want him, you got to get him here. I mean, I think they really need to play, draft board parkour. We'll see if anybody's got the balls to do it. That's
Yeah,
also
but you can't
something I
get
love.
too fucking cute with that, right? You go
Of
back
course
to
you
like
can.
say you go back to like 9 and the Jets take them.
Okay,
Oh,
so you take a different good player. You have a future first round pick to do it all over again. If you suck next year, you're going to have another shot at one of these good quarterbacks in next year's draft.
Yeah, and here's the
so
thing though,
no.
is like you could have a great defensive end, and your team could still suck. But if you got a great quarterback, right, you got a chance. Like their defensive end's not going to fix everything. Quarterback can.
Yeah.
Well, and if Joe Shane doesn't come out with a quarterback in this draft, he is losing his job at the end of this season. Like Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston
How
are
does he
not
still
going to
have a
save Joe
job? I've
Shane's
asked
job.
this question
It's
so
Yeah,
many
I
fucked.
know, I know.
It's
Nobody
fucked.
knows.
It's
Nobody
fucking
knows.
unbelievable.
But he does. He
This is
does.
like
Yeah.
Jason Garrett level job keeping. Who knows?
Unbelievable. It really
Yeah,
is incredible.
yeah.
Yeah.
Says all the wrong things, does them even worse, and yet
Looks
somehow.
dumb while he does
It
it.
does him even worse.
Yep.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, guys, we're gonna round off the show with just kind of another fun segment here. Let's talk about some late round dudes that we're kind of stoked about. I think as I was going through this exercise, I actually thought it was kind of tough because I've read some like deep targets from around the industry, and I feel like our deep targets are much deeper than those deep targets, and so
We get a little deeper for sure.
these might be like 9 inches as opposed to
Yeah.
3.9. So
Yeah.
you're getting your fill.
Yep.
But yeah, like I looked around and I'm seeing like, RJ Harvey and DJ Giddens as some under the radar targets. And to us, that's just fully on the radar. So,
Yeah. If you're listening to this segment in the car and your girlfriend's listening, just pause it and listen later because these are going to be deep.
yeah,
You don't want her to
exactly.
feel funny about how deep these are. That's the
No,
next
she
one.
might get very excited about 3 other
Or
dudes
jealous.
talking
You
ball
just don't
right
want to
now.
get
Yeah.
with this, She was like, wait, it goes that deep? You're like,
I've been missing out.
most don't, sweetheart. This is this one podcast. I mean, most of them don't go this deep.
Yeah.
You know what I
But
mean?
this is the underground.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
the underground.
How the hell do you think they got underground? I mean, they had to dig deep.
Combined, we got 8 inches, baby.
What do you guys got? Innies?
Yeah, Jax is packing all of it. Plus, oh my god, do we even talk about late round guys we want to target
Yes.
at this
This is
point? Okay,
there's no better lead in than that.
so
Guys putting
I
earmuffs on their girlfriends right now. Honey, just quiet down. Don't want to listen to this part.
I'm excited to see, and a lot of these are just like to see if this guy gets drafted, right? Because these guys, like I said, are extra deep. But Corey Kiner, the running back from
Mhm.
Cincinnati, I've been liking him a little bit. LSU transfer. I kind of get sucked into those guys who are recruited highly by those big schools and end up transferring for whatever reason. Much like why I like Ja'Cory Brooks out of Louisville. He went to, I believe, Alabama beforehand. So those are two guys who I'm excited to see if they get drafted. Joe, you told me that you just finished the write-up for one Ty Felton, who we've been steaming up a little bit on this show for the last few weeks. And then how could I not mention the best front man of a boy band ever, Mr. Luke Lachey from Iowa.
Mm.
And it's only because he's an Iowa tight end and those guys just fucking succeed. So just keep an eye. If he gets drafted super, super late in a tight end premium, I might throw him on a taxi for sure. Joe, have at her.
I don't know. I kind of want to read the Ty Felton write up that you just referenced.
No, because you really did not enjoy the reading to the class exercise last week.
Yeah.
And I can confirm that when I edited it, you felt extremely awkward while you were doing that. So we won't put you through that. And this will just be a little teaser to go and purchase the product, which will be available shortly after the draft through our shop at shop.theundroppables.com, as well as you get a discount if you're a part of one of our Patreon tiers, 10% and 25% 5% respectively on what we're planning to release for only 20 bones, people. So this is the first time we've talked about it publicly. And I'm sorry I just went into that, Joe, but I felt like it was a good opportunity to hype the score. So if you want to hear Joe's write-up of Ty Felton, you will have to wait until the UN score product drops, but we are so excited to do that next week. But carry on, Joe.
All right. There is a lot to like about Ty Felton. All right. We'll go a couple positions. I'm going to ignore quarterback because there's nobody deep that I give a shit about there. At running back, I'm going probably undrafted. A couple weeks ago, we talked about RJ Harvey's dad getting in my mentions. I made a post about UC Davis running back Lan Larison, and both his mom and dad liked the post.
Nice. So did
So,
Biggs, I might add, who, if you're
well,
steaming him
Biggs is the guy who turned me on
I've
to him. Biggs,
I gotta
Biggs,
give Biggs some credit because he's been talking about Lan Larison
he
for
has been
months. So I just wanted to make sure I
100%.
name dropped our boy there.
Got to.
And I knew you were going to as well, but I wanted to give him his just due on that.
The first person I texted this morning was Biggs. I tweeted this out at like 6 a.m. because I woke up at 4:30 thinking about Lan Larison, and I actually like this is sicko. This is sicko stuff. I was just like, I'm awake. I'm gonna watch some Land film. And I watched Land Larison film at 4:30 this morning just because I'm a psycho. And dude, watching this FCS stuff is hilarious, dude. This guy looks like if we were to play basketball on an 8-foot hoop against a bunch of 10-year-olds, that's what Lan Larison looks like, at UC Davis. He's just so much better than everybody, like than the competition. It's so just drastic that it's like hard to actually analyze. It's like, does this guy have moves? Does he need to have moves? Like, he just explodes through the hole and scores a touchdown, like seemingly every time. He's making all these. Here's the thing that will translate. He's making all of these dope one-handed catches like behind him over his head. This is a running back. Debro had this great tweet where he's like, Lan Larison is what people wanted Dylan Lobb to be, right? Dylan Lobb was going in like the late third, early fourth round last year. You're going to be able to get this UC Davis running back in the 5th round. You could probably take him he's probably going to be Mr. Irrelevant in your draft. He's probably not even getting drafted. I don't even think he's on sleeper yet. But I love this dude. It's fun to watch. And if you watch his tape, it's like comical how easy it is for this guy to score touchdowns against the competition he's playing on. So that's what makes it a hard eval. But what I do think will translate is the receiving game ability. And like he's just clearly explosive and a gamer. And then I've done even more research. I can't believe I'm spending so much time on this guy. It's probably nothing. Let me just say it's probably nothing. He's probably not going to matter. But he was also like a ranked steer, I don't know, like a rodeo guy when he was in high school. So there's video of this guy like, freaking jumping on cattle and shit. I was just like, dude, I love this guy. I'm in. I'm taking him in the 5th round of every draft.
Did you sorry, I was kind of like multitasking a little bit there, but did you bury the lead that he is like an extra hard hat and lunch pail guy, or did you mention that?
I don't think he did. I was going to ask, what
He,
shade is this gentleman?
dude, he might wear 2 hard hats, dude.
Wow.
Yeah. Double up.
Yeah, I think he does. It's salt of the earth.
It
Salt of the
sounded a
earth,
little
yeah.
crispy, the Lan first name.
Yeah, I mean, he's in rodeos. What do you think?
Okay.
Hey, I
mean, I would
don't make
prefer.
generalizations, Joe.
Yeah, no, I don't know, man. I'll take any color as long as they're in a rodeo. I'm,
Yeah.
So really, really astute analysis thus far on some of these deep sleepers. First of all, I've been hurt so many times with deep sleepers. Julius Chestnut knows, there's just so many where, because I think actually there's certain guys that are good players and we do it every year. I think the running back class is just so deep. Like, I feel like Jarquez Hunter is deep, but it's like, he's like my RB8 but everybody else has,
I've got him up to
because he's
12.
dope.
Everybody's got him at like 15 to 20 or whatever. But like, so I think he's going to be good. But there's a couple of freaks out there. I think Savion Williams I know he's not a like hidden gem at the wide receiver position, but I think he might be at the running back position. And I'm not even joking. I know
Yeah.
that, our friend Matt Waldman had him as like RB6 or something. He's basically has him as one of the best running backs in this class. And absolutely, why not? Like, if he
That'd
can
be dope.
just go play running back instead,
I
like,
love seeing that.
right? It's like, dude, the
Dude
weapon he could
succeed.
be, right? All of a sudden he's split out, and you got some linebacker out there just like, help! What like? What is going on? I've somehow been ISO'd on this guy. It's gone. Like, he's a legit receiver, obviously, but can play running back. Savion Williams is interesting. The other freak is the Dante Thornton Jr. from Tennessee.
Yeah.
He's
The
freaky
monster.
as all
Wait,
freak.
hold on, Dante, for a second, because it's
This
so
little
funny.
freak.
I want to talk about Savion for a second.
Okay, please.
You said he's a running back, and like, I don't know. I see what you're talking about because he had so many rushing plays. He was a quarterback. He ran the ball a lot, but I look at him. He's 6'4", 220. He's got
Yeah.
to put on like 15 more pounds, and this dude's a dope tight end. That's my take. It's like this. The consensus
What
is this guy's
position
not a wide receiver.
will Savion play?
Yeah, huh? Yeah, he plays wide receiver. He's probably getting drafted in the top 100, 120. And we have two different opinions on what position he should switch to, which probably tells you he's not a great fantasy asset for the next.
He's not, but I'm saying, like, this is one of those guys, like, when you're playing Madden and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, well, his hands aren't that good and his route running isn't good, but look, he's a 98 speed and he's 240. He's my new running back. Like,
Yeah.
it's like I know that simplifies
It's
it,
like
like
Taysom Hill.
when you're playing Madden, but it is true, like Taysom Hill. Like, but I look at Cordero Patterson, who I remember, when he
Yeah,
was drafted,
totally.
they just shoved him out at X and was like, do stuff out there, and he was like, I'm not good enough to do that, but I'm
Mhm.
one of the greatest players with the ball in my hands. How about you
Mhm.
try and get it in my hands? They're like, run a deep out, you'll get it eventually.
Mhm.
It's like, they weren't creative with him. I just think that Savion, to their credit, I guess they did get creative with him. Dante Thornton, I'm not exactly sure if he's even a real thing. The other guy that, Waldman put me onto is Andrew Armstrong, who's 24 years old. So we're going to pump the brakes a little bit on Andrew Armstrong at 24 years old. But dude looked really, really good. I did
Mhm.
promise to do so, and I did put on a little bit of the old Andrew Armstrong film, and it was pretty impressive. His 2024 PFF grade was 89.1 as an offensive player, 89.4 receiving grade. I mean, that's pretty good. Dude
And he
was
broke out. He broke out at like under 21, so it's not like his breakout
correct.
age was super old, right? He produced, early on.
Small school, Texas A&M or whatever, some sort of
Yeah, he was
community
Arkansas.
college or whatever. No, before that.
Arkansas.
Oh, before that. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like I don't even know, whatever. But like, so he's kind of like, and that was 3 years ago. So it's 2022 season. That's the only data I have. It goes back that far. I'm on PFF. His yards per out run was 279. He transfers in 23 to Arkansas. He was 2.09 this past year, 2.81. So we'll put him in as a 2.57 career yards per out run. Again, I don't know what was happening before. He obviously was doing something. What was he doing? And between the ages of 18 to 20, I have no clue. JUCO, working at McDonald's, becoming a scientist in prison. I have no clue. Like, he could have been doing anything, and I would be like, oh, well, he was obviously doing some work for NASA. Okay, great. So, but
TX Amco, whatever that is. TX
exactly, is
Amco.
that a
That's where he
gas
was.
station? He was working at a gas station, but also caught 92
Yeah.
balls. Like, pretty impressive.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, pretty special player who's
Shout
able to
out
pull it
to
up.
Nick Nash as well. He
Yes.
of an amazing deep target season in 2024, led the
Yes.
nation in most deep passing or deep receiving categories. Joe, looks like you got something on the brain. I got one more guy I want to drop too.
Yeah.
Oh, I just think we'd be remiss. I think we are the banging the drum from the beginning. This is a Ricardo Blanco podcast.
Oh, sí,
El
señor.
Tercero. El
Sí.
Tercero is a guy.
This is a guy.
that
Yeah.
I am also drafting regularly in the 4th and 5th rounds of my rookie drafts. You know what's funny is I've been seeing him ranked pretty highly. I don't think he you might be like a 5th round pick in the out of this.
Yeah.
Might not be deep enough for this here segment.
Yep.
But I'm a big Ricardo Blanco El Tercero guy.
And I'd be
Absolutely.
remiss not to go out. I'm done after this, but I'd be remiss not to go out on Harold Fannin Jr., 3rd round draft capital. Come on, let's just get him
Yeah.
drafted with purpose, and I will be advocating smashing Harold Fannin at ADP unless that thing skyrockets, but I don't see it, man. He fell so far after that combine that now he's an absolute value in these rookie drafts, and I'm telling you, whatever it takes to get a pick to make sure you get him on your team at that cost is worth it, because what's that, a late 3rd right now? Like, dude, he is so friggin' cheap. Anywhere in the 3rd round for a guy with that type of upside is worth it, because he has Jordan Reed, Evan Ingram upside, and floor of never playing it down in the NFL. Like, I get it, I mean, sure, whatever. But like at that cost, that's what you're trying to do at tight end. You're trying to win your league at tight end, not trying to hit singles. So Harold Fannin still, candle is lit. I did this for Alberto Coibunum. Didn't work out well. I did this for OJ Howard. Didn't work out well. I've been hurt before, but I don't give a shit. We're leaning back into ceiling, because that's what got us George Kittle. That's what gets you these types of players. I was all in on Kittle, all in on all these guys. It's fine. I was kind of all in on Jonnu a little bit. Again, at cost, he was cheap, but you can see the types of seasons that are possible with players of this ilk, whereas all these other guys are just middling. Tight end 8 is their ceiling. I want a guy who can bring me real high upside, and he's in that phylum. So let's go Harold Fannin, round 3 somewhere.
That's
I
all
like it.
these later round picks are for, right? You swing for the fences with these later picks, right? In the
can't
late
wait.
3rd, 4th, 5th round, swing for the fences. Always go for the upside, because the odds are they're going to suck anyways.
They're probably going
Take
to
the
suck.
dude that might be awesome.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah.
Trav, let's go.
Okay,
One
no,
more.
you know what? Harold Fannin is where we're going to end, because it is so fitting for the show and the journey that we've traveled across draft season. I do have one more guy. I promise you, listeners, he is a guy that you have not heard of, and he is very deep, but he had some of the best stats in the nation last year. And so I'm going to drop that in the stat drop-in channel of our Discord. If you're not in it, go check it out. I kind of made that channel just for myself, guys, because I was in the lab digging, and I kind of wanted to drop some stats for the listeners or for the Discord folks, but I didn't want to just drop it amongst all the conversation.
Right.
So I made a channel called Stat Dropping, and it's not just for me to drop stats. So if anyone wants to drop stuff in there, but it will be in there by the time this episode comes out. So please go join the Discord. The link is on our social media. If you don't see it, shoot us a message. We will get it to you. We might have some fun stuff, maybe a little bit of recap action coming for the draft, but we are playing that by ear. So bear with us on that, and keep on the lookout on the social media and the Discord. But boys, Harold
Also,
Fannin was
pay attention.
Yeah.
Pay attention for the UN score dropping right.
Oh yeah, all of the post-draft stuff. Thank you for reminding me, Jax, because coupled with the UN score, which can be purchased on the shop, I am going to put up our post-draft rookie rankings. That's going to be super fun. I'm going to put that up on the shop for purchase, as well as you get it as part of the Patreon tiers as well. So another benefit to the Patreon. We're putting in the work, and I think the nice thing about the rankings is that brings the human element in, and you can, for the wide receivers at least, you can kind of couple that human element of our rankings with what the UN score data model is going to tell you. So I think we kind of have you covered from all bases for your rookie drafts, and it's been a really fun ride with the boys doing all of this for you. This is episode 16, and we're just getting started, but we are at the draft now. So I hope everybody has a great draft, boys. I've had a blast doing it, and I'm excited for what is on the horizon. Leave the floor for any parting shots, fellas, if you want to tell the people.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Merry Christmas.
We will see you next week. It will be post-draft, and we are going to have so much to talk about. I can't wait, guys. Till then, I am Trav, for Jax, for Joe. Peace.